How does time and duality exist for an enlightened master? Let's find out what the greatest spiritual story ever told has to say about this. When you go deeper into Eastern philosophy and spirituality, you realize that there is a need to get over the pair of opposites within duality. This is one of the core teachings within all of the non-dualist schools, and particularly in Advaita Vedanta, and within texts such as the Nididhyasana texts, where we find this teaching within the Ashtavakra Gita. Now, in the Ashtavakra Gita, there is a big emphasis on getting over the pair of opposites and what reality looks like when you become an enlightened sage or enlightened master. Because this book is speaking from that level, because the Nididhyasana text, the Nididhyasana tradition, is usually for those on the cusp of enlightenment or those beyond the pale of enlightenment. And so I want to read to you today an important verse from the Ashtavakra Gita about the nature of getting over the pair of opposites and what that transcendent reality looks like and what is needed to abide in that ultimate reality. What is that time or that age in which the pairs of opposites do not exist for men? One who, quitting those, is content with what comes of itself, attains perfection. So in this verse, it is speaking about our relative life, right? We're talking about here time and an age, and more importantly, duality itself. And Ashtavakra is asking us, what does reality look like when the pairs of opposites don't exist for us? And that usually is a place only embodied by the enlightened masters, the sages, usually of ancient times. And so what we need to think about when we think about the pairs of opposites is we're always in this battle between suffering and happiness, or joy and sadness, or good and evil. We dissect the world up into this and that constantly without understanding who is dissecting the world up into this and that. So first of all, we need to understand it is our conditioning and our subjective viewpoint that thinks something is happy or something is sad, or this is good and this is evil, right? And because if we look at one side of the spectrum, someone might say that this is good and you might say that this is bad. Again, it's a different subjective viewpoint. This is what Maya is, right? Maya is the illusion of measurement, the illusion of the subjective viewpoint, cutting the world up into this and that according to your conditioning. And so then we have good or evil, joy and sadness, and so forth and so on. But what Ashtavakra is saying here is that you can't have good without evil, peace without sadness, happiness without grief. And so it's in cutting the world up according like that you don't understand what this true bliss is. Ananda in Sanskrit, which is unassociated bliss, right? This is true happiness. And because we attach to this is what makes me happy, this is what makes me sad, and so forth and so on, then you create the pair of opposites. And the great Taoist master Zhuangzi would often criticize this as well, where he would say, in having these opposites, this is what creates actually the confusion. You're not just moving with life as a piece of life, you're trying to extract something from life according to the conditioning that you have endured. So when we look at our relative existence, we're going through life's process, trying to extract joy and happiness, and are trying to avoid sadness and grief and so forth and so on, according to our conditioning, according to our likes and our dislikes, and so according to basically our subjective view of the world. But Ashtavakra is telling us that we cannot attain joy and peace through life's processes. We'll continue to have temporary moments of joy, temporary moments of happiness, and even temporary moments of sadness and grief and suffering and so forth and so on. But it's not a permanent state. It's not a permanent abidance in ananda, in bliss. It's just a temporary flux. It's like you're just surfing the waves of life's processes and hoping that maybe this happiness will stick this time, or this temporary moment of peace that I have will stick this time. But you cannot attain that true happiness and peace in that way when you are trying to navigate these pairs of opposites according to your conditioning. So Ashtavakra is saying to us that we can only attain peace and perfection and ultimately Ananda when we transcend life's processes, when we transcend the relative existence. And in doing so, we have to remain unattached to the experiences of life. This is what Ashtavakra is saying. So Ashtavakra is recommending that we have complete vairagya. Vairagya in Sanskrit means non-attachment and also means dispassion towards worldliness. And so Ashtavakra is suggesting that we apply vairagya to life where we're not influenced by the world around us and not even influenced by our own conditioning and our own emotional sensitivity to what's going on in the world. He's saying have complete detachment from that, and then you'll understand what real peace and perfection and joy and happiness is, because it's not arising from the experiences that you are having. It is innate in your nature. And so Advaita Vedanta has a big emphasis on overcoming the experiential reality. It's not saying that the experience is not there, but saying that because we continually frame our experience through our subjective viewpoint, we continue to suffer or we continue to have temporary happiness and joy. Whereas true happiness and joy and peace and equanimity comes from a complete detachment from the experiences that we are having. And I know that this may seem extreme to a spiritual aspirant, or this may seem very hard to achieve. But Ashtavakra is telling us that it's actually not hard to achieve, because it's easy to be in a state of vairagya. It's easy to allow the world to be as it will without interfering with it. This is what in Taoism is called Wu Wei, right? The path of non-interference, of allowing the world to be as it will. Ashtavakra is telling us there's nothing more easier than that. But we get so engaged in our own heads and the life around us that we forget our ultimate nature, and we think that we're going to become happy because of something or because we thought something, not because we are happiness itself. And so that's why in this verse Ashtavakra is saying that the only way to understand the ultimate undifferentiated consciousness of Brahman, which is the Atman within you, is to overcome the jiva that you believe you are and the experiences that that conditioning wants to have on an individual level. Shanti, shanti, shanti.